Today's guest is Bonnie Buckner, PhD, who is the founder of the Institute of Dreaming and Imagery, where she teaches people how to use dreaming and imagery for personal growth, problem solving, and enhanced creativity. She's also the author of The Secret Mind: Unlock the Power of Your Dreams to Transform Your Life, written in 2025. In her new book, Bonnie explains that dreams are the maps that can guide us to solve our challenges and provide us with messages. So let's welcome today's guest, Bonnie Buckner. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time that we're experiencing and going through, and a lot of people are looking for insight and information into their lives of how they can better navigate where they're headed, uh, all the different changes that exist in society within personal, I guess, introspection. And the subject of dreaming has always been an interest of mine. I've always had deep dreams themselves, whether I was able to use them and interpret them for the next day, the week, or the years ahead. Sometimes I had premonitions that were, vivid, that did come true. But for the most part, a lot of stuff seems choppy. But your work itself gives one the opportunity to better understand and better navigate where they're headed or how they can use this information. So maybe you could just share a little bit about how you first got into this work and what was the interest behind it.
I'm happy to, and I'm going to use that to loop back into some of the things you first talked about.
Absolutely.
Um, because you came in talking about how the world we're living in right now is at a certain place of upheaval, and people are looking for insight of how to navigate that. Um, and then you talked about premonition dreams. So let's go back for just a moment.
Sure,
And
sure.
the actual question you asked me is how I got into dreaming. And so when I was young, when I was a child, I had nightmares over and over, recurrent nightmares every night. And I was disturbed by that. And there was one particular moment where I was sitting on our front steps and I really started to think about it. And I started to think, as little kids do, well, maybe I can just never sleep. What can I do to never sleep? I'll just do jumping jacks or whatever. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized you can't not sleep. And what is it if we go to sleep forever, like the opposite of that. And it all came back around to me understanding, oh, I have to understand my nightmares and I have to transform them in some way. I didn't use those, big vocabulary words at the time, but I just knew I needed to like deal with my own nightmares and that's why I'm here on this planet. I'm going to help other people do the same. So, how I relate that back to what you were talking about the world and chaos. There are more kinds of dreams than just premonition dreams. Premonition dreams are one kind of dream, but there's other kinds of dreams. And those other kinds of dreams, you mentioned that your dreams are choppy. Sometimes we have choppy dreams because maybe we're choppy on the inside in that moment. And so, one of the things that I write about in the book, The Secret Mind, is how to use dreams more even than interpreting them, just how to use them as a mirror that's reflecting a piece of me. Because the best way, I think, to respond to the chaos that's in the world around us is to respond to the chaos that's inside of us
In
first.
terms of the dreams, many people are sometimes frightened by aspects of what they receive in a dream. And, many times people will look up a certain thing and have them this stigmatized into a certain category of what will happen. And therefore, sometimes people don't really want to express their dreams, thinking that it could be something negative. Uh, but the process itself of dreaming, as you mentioned, is more complex. And depending upon how the inner world is working, it will be expressed in through the dreams and in I guess in combination with the external internal world itself. um, I know for myself, I could recall certain dreams from childhood that stand out in different aspects of my life, and if I'll be in a certain place, I'll recall that vision of what happened, or healings actually that have taken place, from beings or whatever you want to call them, that I actually then feel better the next 2 days. So I think that we all have a different aspect, a level of consciousness. And would you say that the place that the person's consciousness is, where their development is the extent of how they dream? Are there people who dream more complex based upon their level of awareness?
No, in fact, we're all capable of dreaming. We dream all the time. We dream at night. We also do the same process of dreaming to some extent during our day. I want to, sort of myth bust something you said about how people are afraid of some of the intense things in their dreams. So, our dreams are intense to get us to pay attention to something. It over dramatizes something so that we actually remember it when we wake up and we pay attention to it. And if you think about it, we go all day long, we're experiencing many, many, many different things, but we don't take time to reflect on these so many different things. And if we get, into our routines, we actually don't, as a whole, in general, have enough time of reflecting and pausing in the modern lifestyle.
That's true.
And so we're not really paying attention to inner signals that our body is telling us all day long. Our body is giving us our responses to all these different many, many, many events. We may meet somebody in the street and our body might have a response of like, maybe talk to that person. There's some kind of energy exchange there that's really interesting, but we're so fast. No, I've got to get to my meeting. We don't pay attention to these things. Likewise, we don't pay attention to often the things that are disturbing to us. For example, we might be standing in line to get a cup of coffee and somebody cuts in line and we don't even register that that really irritated us because then our phone rings and we have to do something, we have to deal with something else. So we're like pulled in so many different directions all day long. So when we dream, our dreams are showing us back to ourself. It's a check in the mirror, very much, of what am I feeling and where am I in me, in myself? Am I in a reactive mode? Am I in a responsive mode? So, nightmares, which are typically the intense dreams people don't want to talk about, are showing us, they're our friend really, because they're showing us, hey, I'm kind of caught up in some kind of emotional reaction here. And there's a way that I can respond to that if I'm aware of it. And I'm only going to be aware of it if it gets my attention.
Right.
So it's over dramatized.
Okay, so from that point, once the person has this specific dream or dreams or reoccurring dreams or a nightmare itself, how does a person use the dream as a practical tool to solve their challenges and to go forward with them?
Yeah. So one way is by simply being present to the fact that I'm in an emotional tangle and then taking a moment to sort of look at that and see where in my life am I living a nightmare? And it's very easy to find. I'll give you an example. There was a person that I worked with who dreamed of going into this, huge stadium and suddenly having a flamethrower and just blasting out the flamethrower and blazing everybody.
Right, right.
And this person was horrified at this image, right? But as we were talking about it, this person said to me, actually, I've been really angry about a lot of things. I just didn't realize that I was acting out on it and that I was blasting out in waking time ways of just being very short and snippy and saying angry things to people all day. So again, the dream over dramatizes that of the flame throwing. But this person, after a little bit of reflection, realized I'm doing that all day with family members, coworkers. They say something to me and I just blast out something in return. So that connection was made. So that's one way it can be a practical tool is just sit with it and say, where is this corresponding energy in my daytime? The second thing, and remembering that the literal acting out of our waking time is put into images not necessarily words in our dreams. So it's just two different ways of seeing the same thing. The other way we can use it as a tool is to do a waking dream exercise, to just imagine going back into the dream and shifting it. So, another example is someone who was dreaming they were in this really cramped car with too many people, and that it was dark outside, they couldn't see, and the music was too loud, and the car was driving too fast, and they were getting close to this gaping hole. They were going to fall into it. With a little reflection, this person was full of too much of everything. They were on an extended working trip and they were having too many meetings, too little sleep, too much, on the road, not good for you food. Like everything was too much. And their body was headed for a hole, either getting sick or having some kind of a breakdown. They couldn't sustain it. And so one thing that we did in the session is to go back inside, close their eyes, and imagine getting back into the car and behind the wheel and stopping it. As soon as they did, spontaneously, the spontaneous imagery became quiet. Nobody else was in the car anymore, and it was sunny outside. That shifted the energy in the person. That shift in energy from being racing and having to run da, 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 to being calm and peaceful, that contrast helped that person to then call back and say to the office, I got to get off the road. I got to come home and just regroup because it was such a huge contrast.
Right.
We boil the frog. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, Adam, but
Maybe, maybe in the Northeast, not
yeah,
really. Well, maybe.
no. It's maybe my Texasism coming out, but you put a frog in cold water and slowly start turning up the heat, and it still sits there just adapting itself to
Yeah,
it until you boil it and it dies. And we do that all the time. We think, I can deal with this, I can deal with this, and we just drive ourselves into oblivion.
yeah. But I'm of the belief in terms of my own experience, and maybe you can share your opinion about this in terms of uh, dreaming itself, whether it's a conscious act or the a part of the unconscious mind actually leaving when we have experiences and going to certain places and having vivid feelings, vivid experiences in those dreams, in those places that we dream about. While we talk about you talk about symbols and patterns that exist, the other aspect of it is that many times we actually can see people that passed, or we can make contact with people who've passed and hear vivid images, vivid words spoken to us. Um, and some of the work that I do in terms of the healing work I do with the Akashic Records, I know that I'm able to access that place and bring back information. So I was wondering if there's any connection towards the work you do and bringing not spirituality itself per se, but consciousness in terms of how the consciousness is it leaving the body? Is it in the body in terms of receiving this information, or do you have any thoughts of those things that I just brought up?
Yeah, I speak to it in this way.
Yeah,
We do have these moments where we're able to have what I call resolved dreams. So that can be a great dream, it can be a dream of light, it can be a dream of union, where we have a very big experience. And for me, we're in a physical body
right.
that is limited by nature, by the end of my physicality. But dreaming is not limited, and dreaming is all time,
Right.
and it's also contained within me in some way. So I can reach into that allness without actually physically leaving my body. I can have, you know, my own consciousness is bigger as well without having to leave the anchor of my physical body, let's say.
Yes, yes. Okay, as it relates to your book, The Secret Mind, when you speak about the subject, the secret mind, how would you define that exactly? I mean, that's the title of your book, and basically we're talking about the subject of dreaming, but in terms of how did you come up with that particular title for the book itself, and how it encompasses the work you're doing?
So we're dreaming all the time. And when we're aware of that, we can be having this kind of conversation that we're having, but I can have one eye looking out at you, one ear listening to you, and one eye and ear listening inside myself and hearing in a much bigger way. What are the energies being exchanged between us? What are my responses to what we're talking about? What then, if I know my responses, what do I want to do or say in return? Then things become very malleable. People think that conversations are fixed. I got into an argument with someone and it had to go that way. Not at all. The secret mind is hidden in plain sight. It allows us to access a much more aware part of ourselves and find openings and find ways to move things in different directions. It's kind of like right now, you and I are looking at each other and don't know what's behind us. And if we're looking all the time, here, 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 we might not see that there's a door behind us. But
Right.
the secret mind can be aware of that door. And that can open up whole new possibilities, either if I'm in the middle of having a moment with a friend or I'm in the middle of a team meeting and I can discern and catch these little openings and move through them.
Okay. So, um, as it relates to, like, I would say the steps towards understanding or starting the relationship with our dreaming, you've mentioned a little bit, but let's say, for example, tomorrow that, or tonight I have a dream and then I wake up tomorrow morning. What are the things, how can I either document it or what should I do in order to better understand the dreams and the images or whatever I'm receiving? How do I proceed or what do I do?
So it starts before you go to bed. You got to get a journal and a pen and have the intention to write it down. I know in your healing work, I'm sure intention is so important.
Yeah,
If I come into a healing session and I don't really have the intention to heal, no matter how amazing you are, it's only going to go so far.
that's
If
right.
I have the intention that I'm going to get healed, then we're working together and it's really going to happen. And in that same way, if I really have the intention to get to know myself through my dreams, and I care about it so much that I actually get a journal that I like and I write down on the date, and tonight I'm going to have a clear dream and I'm going to remember it. And then I do it when I wake up with that dream. I write it down. That starts the whole dreaming journey.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at let's say dreams that a person has. Sometimes people say it's a random act of information that comes to us. But by setting
Hmm.
an intention, we're then making a connection to something that we are drawing an energy towards us in some capacity, getting information that we're looking for. And so when people have dreams, let's say about ex-partners or relationships that they once had, and these images, sounds, whatever may come back, or something from the past, people say, "How could you dream about that person? How could you dream about this?" And there are obviously moments where there are either conflicts probably that weren't resolved, or whatever it is, the person is entering, I don't know how we would describe it, how you would describe it, but so in essence, what we do have a sense of control over the dreams or the information that we're going to receive. Is that what you're saying with the setting the intention?
I'm saying just set the intention to develop that relationship.
Okay.
Now, I can incubate a dream,
Right,
yes.
right, right.
If I'm really trying to figure out, let's say, a job decision, and I want to incubate around that, I can do that by also setting that intention. I'm going to dream about, next steps in the job. But that gets very tricky because we often say that we're open to hearing what our inside has to tell us, but in fact, we load it down with expectation and we think it has to look a certain way. And I may ask, what are my next steps for this next job? And I'm expecting to get the answer, oh, call this person, something very linear, let's say. But what my dream may come back and show me is something I need to unlock in me to be more forthright in the way I speak. something that I don't even catch because it seems so outside of the little box of expectation I put on what that's supposed to look like. So I actually encourage people not to incubate dreams very frequently,
Right.
and definitely not until you're very clear that you're going to be open to whatever the dream wants to bring back to you.
Yeah, I don't think people recognize the power, I guess, of intention in terms of not only in the dream state, but in the waking state itself. I guess the saying, be careful for what you wish for. Maybe be careful what you want to dream of, possibly, but in terms of using dream as an interpretation. Because for the most part, there are dreams where there are moments, I guess, or I would say in my life, and I'm sure I could relate to other people, where we're not dreaming as intensely or vividly as other times. Um, can you touch upon that? Maybe there's either a reasoning or a blockage or some type of I don't know. Maybe you can speak about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is seasonal. We tend to think in modern life that it's this sort of linear line that's always moving straight up, progress, progress, progress. But life is seasonal. There's times when we're gestating, we're dreaming about something, we're really getting into that creative receiving part of dreaming. And then there's times where it's ready to come out and be made tangible in the world. And so there's different moments where we slip into our dreaming and our dreaming is more active with us. There's also different moments in our own life. If I'm super busy, like I have been all summer talking about this book, then I'm very outwardly focused. And it's a very different space than coming off the road, being quiet, having some retreat time, things like this. So there's that. And then there's also just, there's times when life gets choppy, as you mentioned at the beginning. And if we're, sort of chopping at the chop, let's say, and, moving in this way, sort of reacting with it, we may not be dreaming as deeply because we also may not be sleeping as deeply during these periods of time. So there's many different reasons why our dreaming is fluid and different because we're fluid and different every day.
Yeah, I hear that. I remember speaking to my father, and I said to him, "Dad, do you dream?" I had conversations about his past as after World War II as a refugee after the war, and many times I've had dreams about my grandmother, his mother, and my grandfather. With vivid stuff where I saw in the dream, and then every light in the room was on, and they were, the lights were completely off, and then my grandmother who passed away, and I saw her. So I've had these connections where I've had dreams, and then something specific in the waking life or in that moment has occurred. So I always thought I wanted to express this to actually share this with my father. And when I spoke to him, he goes, "No, I don't dream at all." And it was very interesting for me to hear that. I go, "You've never had dream?" He goes, I don't remember anything ever." And that's also another aspect of it that people have a dream and they can see fragments of it, but they can't put it together and they don't remember anything. How do you deal with that if that happens? I mean, if it's a reoccurring
Well,
thing?
let's use your father for an example because you
Yeah,
brought him in the room.
sure.
Um, he also probably doesn't care if he remembers his dreams very much.
That's true.
So if somebody's going to make an appointment with me, they're caring about their dreams. It goes back to intention.
Right.
If I'm interested, you do baseball, right?
I played
Is
baseball, yeah,
that
in
what you do?
college. Yeah, I did.
You
Yes,
play baseball. Yeah. So, you're interested in baseball. So
I
you
am.
probably go out and you find that you get a lot of information about baseball. Me, I don't know one thing about it, and nobody's ever talking to me about it. I never run into people talking about it. You see what I mean? We kind of put our focus where we're interested and where we're curious, and then that focus grows.
Yeah, it's interesting if you speak about baseball, for example, for my dreams, I would say that sports, dreaming of sports themselves, the act of sports, I guess has picked up my sense, my ego when I'm feeling down in the real world, and referring back to visions of either hitting a home run or playing hockey and scoring a goal. These are all energies that have lifted me up a bit, I'd say. Those are the areas of that aspect, or healing myself, feeling, rejuvenated. That was an intention, or yeah, sometimes I remember as a child, like dreaming about a baseball game or hitting a home run and then falling into a sleep and then being the hero of the game, which was a nice feeling. So it's interesting how, as you mentioned, intention, but also the fact of what your interests are and where your mind is at in that particular time in your life is what you'll be dreaming about as well. As you said as well, I tried to speak to my father to share a commonality with him, but as you said, he wasn't interested because a lot of it is he blocked out a lot of the past as well from his experiences. And I think it's interesting because sometimes people think that, oh, I'm not dreaming about that. But then again, something could just come through without you having any control over it. And those are also very interesting. Randomly, you say, wow, where did that come from? And
Yeah,
I've had those dreams where, uh, I guess premonitions, exactly what would happen, happened many times, often. And I would say, from my experience, I don't know how you relate to it. I'd say that the more open I am to the wonder of life and have my consciousness is open to things, the more dreams, the more information is at our disposal. I guess that's when I said earlier when
that
I
is so beautifully put, Adam.
yeah,
The wonder of life. That's exactly right.
yeah. So I think the more we're open, the more we'll receive receptivity. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
good.
I'm American, but I live in France. And prior to moving to France, I had some dreams where I was speaking in fluent German, and I don't speak German.
I do.
And then when I moved here to France, all of a sudden, for over a year, almost every night, all my dreams were in fluent German.
Wow.
And for a long time, I had dinner with a German family. I would be seated at the table, we're chatting in German. It's in German. And then I had this one dream that sort of they kind of stopped after this one dream. And in this dream, I'm at the bottom of a hill. And as I'm going up the hill, there's houses, and they start at the oldest house of some centuries ago, and they become increasingly modern as I go up
Right.
until I get to the most modern house that looks like more or less this time period. And I knock on the door, and I open the door. So I'm looking at me,
Wow.
and the me that opens the door begins speaking to me in German. And I start speaking back in German. And then I say, wait a minute, are we talking in German here? And the me that opens the door starts laughing and says in German something like, why not? And I say, okay. And I keep speaking in German. And I didn't really have a German dream after that time. Um, for me, I feel like it's paths. Sometimes
Right.
we connect into exactly these certain memories and places and things. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. And for me also, it's one of those things that I'm also very open to the wonder and marvel of life. And when we open out to that wonder, we become more well open. We're welcoming experiences, and yellow becomes very brilliant yellow. It's not just regular yellow anymore. And green grass is like, wow, that's so brilliantly green and beautiful, and different things come to us.
Yeah, well, you shared a little bit about your dreams or being dreams of being Jewish since you were very young, and growing up in Texas, and maybe you could share specifically on that note, because it has somewhat of, I guess, maybe a correlation or maybe not. But
Yeah, I don't know. I don't need to make a correlation if there is or there
okay,
isn't.
okay,
It's
okay,
just, you know,
yes,
but
yeah,
maybe, I don't know. But I, as a kid, I did ask my family. I just had a feeling we were Jewish, and I would ask my family, "Aren't we Jewish?" And they would say, "No, we're not Jewish." And I just, it felt like I didn't
yeah,
get it, but okay, I thought we were. Um, and then a different sort of experience that led me to long ago converting to Judaism is um, I began to have different dreams of interacting with different parts. For example, I'm walking in and meeting a group of people who call themselves the Zohars, and we know that that's a very important book. And I began singing with them in a language that I still don't know what language that was. I had other dreams where I was speaking in fluent Hebrew.
wow,
So, more than just these dreams, because that could just be a dream. You know, I haven't moved to Germany. I'm not diminishing the importance of the dream,
yes,
but
yes,
I didn't move to Germany because I spoke fluent German in my dreams several times. But the Judaism thing, it just, as I began to study with different teachers and rabbis, it just felt like a homecoming. And
yeah.
so it just didn't feel like a conversion at all. It just felt like, oh, okay, I've finally found my way back here. Good, let's go.
That's amazing. Yeah. You see, for me, I found incorporating every aspect of, as I mentioned before, the wonders or the imagination, like that can open us up to, I guess, personal growth and healing at our disposal. And, not challenging any belief system, but I guess, again, being open has brought me to understand that dreams, has been a very important variable, and the opportunity for us to, like you say, or your work lends itself to, is an interpretation of what we receive as information to help us go further in our lives, to help us heal, to help us grow. Um, there was interesting. There was uh, um, a book, or there was first a movie, but the book was called Across Time and Death, where a woman had a reoccurring dream. And I think she lived in
Hmm.
America, and they made a movie with forgot Jane Seymour, who played the role. And the woman had a reoccurring dream of being in Ireland. And her husband said, "It's only a dream. Why do you keep mentioning this, mention this, mention this?" But it kept reoccurring over and over and over again until she did something about the dream, which was to go to Ireland. And she drew the imagery she saw in her dream. And through this imagery, she actually found the place where this town was. She looked at she
Hmm.
cornered it in the dream. What happened was she wound up going there, and she felt that she had lived in this place in another life. And incidentally,
Hmm.
everything she dreamt of documented. She wound up one day realizing that she had a family that lived there in the 20s. She went to the
Hmm.
church and asked if there were anybody by the name of this particular family. And he said, yes, there were eight brothers, eight sisters, and the mother was so and so. Well, she happened to be at the cemetery when she went to the cemetery to look at the children who passed on. And one of the children came to put flowers on one of the other children's graves. And
Hmm.
she stopped and asked in conversation, could you tell me a little bit about your family here? And then she started interjecting questions that she would have never known, and said, "Where did you live on this hill? Did you, as this child, used to go to work over the with a ferry?" And the son said yes. And he was 80 years old, and she was in her 40s. And so this reoccurring dream connected her back to our family. The BBC did a special on it. The book was called,
Hmm.
I have it, Across Time and Death. And so for me, and that aspect of also is such a significant part of connecting to a part, as I spoke to you earlier about, a past life that I experienced as well, and the connection towards symbols and feelings that we just can't explain. or can't really put our fingers on, but we can feel it within ourselves. And so this was such an interesting part. I think that set me on the journey to understand that the dreams are not only symbols, but they're also directions, and they point in, they may point in a certain direction. And the work you're doing, The Secret Mind, the book itself is such an interesting subject because I guess it gives the reader and the person the opportunity to not only journal the information, but to have them on a path to lead them somewhere. It takes them somewhere, and then they get to look back and say, "Oh, that is where I came from, and look where I'm now, or where it guided me to." So, what was the motivation for writing the book itself?
Well, the book itself, before I get to that question, I want to say one thing about how dreams lead us there. You use the
Okay,
word symbols. I think of dreams as images that are alive, not symbols.
okay,
They're always moving and they're always unfolding. You know, we have a dream and it feels like a discrete thing. It has a beginning and an end, but it continues to resonate in us. And people continue to think about and talk about their dreams. And they might say to somebody, I had that weirdest dream last night. And they're talking about it because somehow it's moved something inside of us. And I just want to say again, I really want to emphasize that there's more than one kind of dream.
okay.
There's seven different kinds of dreams, and then there's premonitory experiences. So seven plus one, eight. But it's important to know that because sometimes we just have dreams that are showing us, hey, look, you got a little angry today, and there's something you can do about it. Sometimes we have dreams that are saying, you know, it's time to move. Like the soul wants to move. And that movement might be, it's time to be more creative in my life. That movement might be, it's time for me to explore going back to school. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, a huge upheaval. It might simply be as well just bringing forward a potential in me that I've pushed down, that I haven't been giving enough time to. So dreams do move us because we're always moving, we're always evolving. The soul is very curious. It's exciting to be here in a material body, in a material world, in a certain time and place. There's things to discover. And so if we stagnate, our dreams are going to start to maybe give us a little nudge to start to move our inside a little bit, to get us to explore and create again and be more of who we really are. So, um, you know, we've talked about some more dramatic stories
Right,
here
right, right.
about, you know, and moving beyond this
Yeah.
lifetime. And that does happen sometimes, but it's not just that that makes dreams so important to us. It's also these little nudges that move us into um, expanding our sense of self and who we are and what we're capable of, you know?
Yeah, I guess I'm coming from a perspective of my own personal experience, and and understanding it from my perspective, which is an important aspect of what you're pointing out. I know, like for example, people do have dreams and sometimes question what does that not color, but what does that animal or what does that archetype uh, mean? The butterfly, the horse, the animal. Um, you know, the dark and the light, different aspects of it. I guess based again upon my level of consciousness of understanding my own interpretation and the way I've delved into my life, I guess I looking at it from at that perspective. But again, as you mentioned, like when you do have a conflict at work, you could be dreaming about a specific conflict with somebody, and you can actually, I guess, I know, do we work through those emotions through the dream? Does it help resolve the unconscious, maybe anger, fears that exist? Is it a way for us
It
to,
does. And you gave an example of that.
yeah,
And here's the example. You said sometimes when I'm down, I've had a dream of like hitting a home run.
yeah, yeah,
So that's a physical body memory of I'm capable. And if I'm in a period of feeling down, it's because I suddenly feel like I can't. and I'm not capable. And so the dream of suddenly that physical sensation of hitting the home run returns us to that inner experience of I can and I am capable. So it shifts. And when the inner experience shifts, then we're capable of shifting the outer manifested experience.
Yeah. Okay, so so when a client or a person you work with goes through the process, the dreaming process, the journaling, and the understanding of certain things, um, what is the byproduct at the end? What are they left with? What are they feeling? What do they express?
It depends on what they're working on. So let's go back to something you were talking about. You have this dog or a horse or an animal or light and dark, and what does that mean? Asking that question is thinking. Dreams are trying to get us to feel.
Okay,
Let's think about, there's been a time I know in your life where you've just known something. You've known, I need to pursue that question, or this is right for me, or this isn't right for me. That inner knowing is not really verbal. It's somewhere deep inside of us. I just know. How do you know? I just know. That's what we tell people. I don't know. I just know.
exactly.
That space is where dreaming works. So if I start thinking horse, what is the horse? Dog, what is the dog? I'm out of it. If I get into it and I feel it, what is the feeling of that horse in that context, in that dream? And what is the experience of it? What is that horse doing? Is the horse charging or is the horse laying down? All of these things are feeling based, and that can help me understand what are the energies moving around in me at this moment in time because dreams are present tense.
Yeah. How does a person go from the dream state back to the waking state and then revisit the dream they had before? How does that operate?
You mean like doing a waking dream
Yeah,
exercise kind of
waking
thing?
dream exercise. Yeah. I've always if it's an unpleasant dream, most people don't want to go back to it. They want to stay away from it, but there's so much information, I guess, in that what we avoid. And
Yeah, so it starts by first understanding the dream. So a lot of the reason why people have fear, it starts with just because they don't get it yet. And not getting it yet with these kind of funky elements to it, perhaps is, I don't want to get it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when we start to look at the dream, and I give that in the book, The Secret Mind, different ways of pulling out the pieces of the dream and getting deeper into it, then we kind of start to see, look, there's this part of the dream, and there's a clear thing that's being asked for. I gave the example of the dream of the cramped car and the loud music, and it's going towards a gaping hole. It's pretty obvious that it needs to stop before it goes into the gaping hole.
right.
So once we know what to do, then we can go back in because we know what to do. The thing that makes dreams frightening in that way is because we're living it in the moment and we don't know what to do. But when you start to work with the dream, you realize, oh, I know what's needed here. We call it the necessity. And so then I can, while I'm awake, I have access to all the tools of my imagination and my decision making, close my eyes, go back into the dream, get into the car, and put my foot on the brake, stop it. It becomes something that's easy to go back in and do because I'm equipped to do it this time, as opposed to living it in real time in the dream.
Yeah, most people would get caught up in the fact that it was something in a dream. If they didn't value a dream itself, then they would say there's no point in going back and changing it. But then it would be the same equivalent as having a problem in the past that we don't look back or try to resolve in the present. That's a reoccurring conflict or problem that exists. So I guess the difficulty is just as if we have something from months ago that's bothering us and we say, I'm not going to deal with it. I guess the dream itself could be a means of a therapeutic means of giving us a chance to not involve anyone else but our own into working and our own thinking to resolve something that could bring a resolution. And that's very interesting. And that
Yeah,
information,
because it helps us. we
Yeah.
go more lightly through the world. If I have an issue and I say I'm not going to deal with it, doesn't go away. It just means I stick it in a pocket somewhere. And then I have another one, I stick it in another pocket, and I have another one, I stick it in another pocket. Pretty soon, the coat I'm wearing is so heavy with all these things in my pocket, I can't even walk. I
Yeah.
can't walk normally. So if we just see each thing as it comes, and that's the really one of the great blessings of dreams because they happen every day. It's like making a nice little housekeeping every day. If we see it, we deal with it, move on. We stay very present tense and we move lightly in this world.
So your the core of the work is basically not really is not analyzing it completely, but feeling it, and feeling what you're going through as a, I mean, there's a combination of having to understand theoretical to understand what the cause and effect is or what the byproduct of something is. But as I relate to it from my own specific work that I do, which is interesting because in in shamanic work of having journeys where people are drumming and their mind is in more meditative state, they then are open and the information comes through when a person is in a state of receptivity as opposed to a state of the ego state where they're blocking or fearful of what's going to happen. um, so in doing shamanic work, when I do drumming sessions, which is more of a beat that relaxes the mind, then people become more receptive, and through that spirit animals come through and representatives of the energies of what a person is experiencing in the hologram of an animal. So if it's a wolf, per se, wolf is related towards the pack and joining a group and working together with people, and whether it be a specific theme, and it's very interesting, like or a turtle, it's time to protect yourself. It's time to watch where you are, or take cover. Different animals themselves, the snake, healing, shedding your skin. So I think the more we prepare ourselves in understanding that there is more than just meets the eye in our lives, and the work that you do assists people to expand themselves, to not just take the waking world and what exists, but to go into the nighttime and to use that part where our brain is still working and also healing and recovering, um, as a powerful part of our lives. And that the work you do is powerful. It's a very powerful aspect. Yeah.
All of us have this, yeah, this innate capacity to heal ourselves and to work with ourselves. And I'm talking healing, not curing. I'm talking about healing the emotional challenges that we're feeling, or the fact that we're not letting come through more of ourself, like these abilities to move ourselves to new places. We all have it inside of ourselves, but you just put it so beautifully that it gets blocked out. And we have to move to that receptive place. And this work that I teach is at the basis of it is a 13th century origin lineage of working with dreams that's Kabbalistic in origin. And Kabbalah means receiving, to receive. So it's about that inner insight. And you said it's about feeling more because when we feel, then we know.
Right.
It's very different than thinking. When
Yeah.
I think, I have facts.
That's right.
But when I feel, I know.
Yeah.
I know that that works for me, that that doesn't work for me. I know many different things, and knowing and feeling are related. So we start with going back to feeling, um, and then from that, our inner knowing arises.
Yeah. It's the waking moment of I guess some dreams that that are a little bit more intense do have an impact on us physically. I know that, for example, I'll have dreams, for example, let's say it's a full moon. I mean, and for my aspect,
Yeah.
I know it's more intense for me. I know that I will be in an intense, more of the conflicts that are existing will be more profound, or I'll definitely get profound messages during those specific times. And chemistry wise, or however you want to, label it or place it, it's such a natural and interesting phenomenon to take all this work. Um, and like, where do you go from here in terms of the work itself? Like, is there more to divulge in information? Is there more through your personal experiences working with people to then share their experiences, or and how it has helped people? Where does the work go, or in terms of,
It does. Yeah, all of what you've said, but also, the institute that I run, we're training people to do this work. And we're adapting this work for to bring into places like leadership. I do a lot of work with leaders and leadership training programs and coaching. We bring it into the creative and professional arts. We work a lot with performing arts foundations and people like that. We have our regular classes working with individuals, and we also work with young people. We have what's called our Dream Your World Kids program, and we work in developing youth. And so part of my next thing is just to continue to develop this work and how we're training people and seeing how people creatively adapt this work into their different professional fields. Because, Adam, as you well know, it's not that long ago that people dreamed together, gathered together, dreamed together as communities and families and shared of that inner experience and what they're dreaming of. And people are so reticent to spend that time to go inside and reflect. And it's so powerful. And it's very powerful when we do it in groups, when people know what other people are dreaming. And there starts to be this resonance that begins to occur. And within like a 10-week class, I find that people start to sort of dream along the same theme, and we can see how each other is moving and growing and understanding this same theme. And so it's really important for me to bring dreaming back to regular everyday conversation because it's a part of our regular everyday experience. We dream every single night, and it's something that's important and useful as part of our being an integrated whole human being.
yeah, I just wanted to touch upon something you said. I think, not the only the openness of it, but in the connections towards, I guess, people in our families or people we know in communities. Like, for example, my grandmother, as a child, I'd sit at a kitchen table and she would tell me her dreams. And
Mm.
it was interesting for me to say, your uncle came told me this in the dream, or I dreamt of my parents, or why did this happen? And then when she passed, I had her diaries, and she documented her dreams of the vivid, most profound dreams about interactions with her deceased son, my uncle, and what he did and what he said, and it made me open to the fact of there is more than meets the eye. That there are this, as your work is doing, is the nighttime is another life itself, giving us feedback and information on the daily on our lives. So for me, I went forward with that, not uncomfortable, sharing my dreams or thinking about my dreams, because my grandmother opened the door for me to say, you can dream, or you're allowed to dream, or you can have nightmares or things that aren't pleasant and share them. And for me, it was therapeutic to know that, because I went through periods in my adolescence where if I would have felt these things, I said, how do I share this at 15 and 16 years of age when I'm dreaming? And for me, and the work you're doing gives a person the outlet, the opportunity to understand themselves better. And that's a profound and inspiring work. So thank you for that.
It is. And that's a great story. And my grandmother also told me about her dreams and about family members and many things that because she was a great dreamer, that she would dream about and then she would respond to in the daytime. And One of the main things that we teach in our Dream Your World Kids program is to start talking to your kids about dreams,
Yeah, wow.
because that right there opens us up, as you've said so beautifully, that we have an inner life and it's okay to share it and it's okay to talk about it. And that's really important.
Okay, on that note, I wanted to just would like you to just share your information of where people can reach you and where your book is available.
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon, and I think you can pre-order or just order it on bookshop.org. It's also, you can find all of this on my website, bonniebuckner.com, or Institute for Dreaming and Imagery.com, either one. And we're on Instagram, so bonniebuckner.com, just spell out DOT,
Yep.
and dream with IIDI.
Yeah, I'll put all that information in the description below. If you could leave us with a message, a last message regarding the work or something that you wanted to share, your insight on something.
Yeah, just start writing your dreams down. And when you wake up with it, you can even set it aside a little bit and come back to it with a curious mind and just see what connections you make when you read back over the dream a little bit later in the day with a curious mind.
Okay, so thank you. On that note, I want to thank you for joining me and giving me the opportunity to share in your insight and expertise on this subject. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Me too.